So what they argued was that he wasn't convicted of selling drugs or illegal items himself, but he was held responsible for what others sold on the site. So here are some questions that I wanted to just ask you guys, generally, right? Do you believe that the court ruling was fair? Should he have been held responsible for what others sold on the site? Right? Do you think it's the government's job to control what people can buy and cannot buy? And finally, how important do you think cyber security or cyber activity is to a country's national security? Right? Some questions just to think about. Does anybody think that this ruling was unfair?
Oh,
Do you think he didn't deserve 2 life sentences? Oscar,
mm,
you said no.
yeah. No, I think it was unfair. Yeah, but the government maybe tried to set out a precedent, or um, trying to imply something that nobody can be much more outsmarter than the government.
Yeah, so that was actually the ruling that the reason why he received those 2 years, 2 life sentences plus 4 years. The judge basically said that she gave this because she wanted to show as an example to people who might want to do the same thing as him. But in the end, right, what ended up happening? It didn't work. It didn't work. There was even more people who did this and who are even more successful than he was. Right, so these things are like multi-million-dollar industries, just roaming the deep web. So, very, very much it didn't work. Right, it didn't work. So let's continue. All right, so we're gonna continue privacy versus surveillance. We touched a bit on it last class, but today we wanted to go over Pegasus. Pegasus. So who's heard of this before? I know Oscar. We've been over this, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
All right, we have other people who've been over this, but who has never heard of Pegasus? Anna, were you in the class last time as well when we went over this?
I was in the class and we saw this topic and just recommend something about this.
Okay, okay. So we have 3 people in this class who went over it. Kaney, did we go over this already? No? Okay, great, 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 great. And I think Enrique, right? Definitely not yet. So we got it. We got it. So if you've already known about Pegasus, we're gonna re-review it and maybe you'll learn something new. So Pegasus, right? What is it? So let's start with Enrique. Would you mind reading the first bullet point?
Absolutely. Okay. Pegasus. Pegasus is hacking software or spyware that is developed, marketed, and licensed to governments around the world by the Israeli company NSO
Thank
Group.
you so much, Enrique. Right. So this is a software, like he said. It's made in Israel and they give it out to governments, right? That's what we know right now. Kaney, would you mind reading the second and third, please?
Pegasus can stealthily enter a smartphone and gain access to everything on it, including its camera and microphone. Designed to infiltrate the device running on Android, BlackBerry, iOS, and Symbian operating systems and turn them into sovereignly devices.
Thank you so much, Kaney. Right. So what we learned here was that this spyware can get on every single device. Right. You can't run away from it. Once it's in your device, it can turn on your camera, your microphone, know your location. Right. It could be any device. And Anna, last bullet point, please.
The company says it sells Pegasus only to government and only for the purposes of tracking criminals and terrorists.
Thank you. Thank you. Right. So this is what they claim. So let's see. We're going to watch a short video of Pegasus. And I want to include another video, that something we haven't watched yet. So, yeah, let's start with this one.
With just a single text, it can bypass your phone's security and install spyware that grants complete access to your device. It can access every message you've ever sent. It can access every message you've ever received. It can access every photo, every video, every email. It can turn on your microphone. It can turn on the microphone even when you're not using a phone call. Just record what you're doing in the room. It can turn on your camera. It can record what's on the screen. It can access your GPS. It can monitor your location. And it can do all of this without you ever knowing. The spyware technology that makes this possible is called Pegasus. Pegasus is probably the most advanced piece of spyware ever developed. It is effectively the most invasive form of surveillance imaginable. Any idea that you had that aspects of your life could be kept private and on the mobile phone are wrong.
So if you are someone who thinks that you're safe because you use WhatsApp, which is end-to-end encrypted, or you use Signal, it really is meaningless once that Pegasus is on your phone.
Pegasus can infect both iOS and Android while remaining virtually undetectable. So one of the ways that Pegasus will attack your phone is through what's called a zero-day vulnerability. This is a vulnerability that the phone's manufacturer doesn't yet know exists.
Pegasus is the main product of a company called NSO Group, which is an Israeli surveillance company.
So the people who are using this spyware are government clients. These will be governments around the world.
Okay, so we're gonna see, right? So we saw a little bit of the countries that have used it, right? So I was supposed to pause it a little bit before, but I kind of missed the mark. So here's some questions, right? What country has Pegasus? What country has Pegasus?
Mexico.
This is a great program.
Mexico.
Yeah, so according to the video, right, and to a lot of sources, Mexico is one of the countries that have it, right, along with Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Hungary, India, Kazakhstan, Morocco, Rwanda, Saudi Arabia, Togo, and the United Arab Emirates, right? So all these countries have purchased this spyware. Now, again, right, we have one country that is kind of dear to our hearts here, right? Mexico, right? So what's going on with that, right? Why does Mexico have it? How is it being used, right? These are all very good questions, and we'll get to that. So let's finish the video and see, what exactly has happened with Pegasus.
NSO Group, which is an Israeli surveillance company.
So the people who are using this spyware are government clients. These will be governments around the world that the NSO Group have sold a copy of Pegasus to. A Guardian investigation can now reveal widespread abuse of Pegasus by NSO's government clients.
The reason this investigation is so extraordinary is that we at The Guardian have gained access through Forbidden Stories to a treasure trove, tens of thousands of records.
The leaked records include the phone numbers of thousands of people who have been selected as potential targets by governments with access to Pegasus.
Before, we had an inkling that this technology was being used in an abusive way. But now the doors have been just thrown wide open, and we have a much greater insight into the scale of the abuse that has occurred.
Just because a number appears in this list, it doesn't mean it was definitely hacked. But in some cases, we've been able to go and check. We've done forensics on the phone that the person was using at the time. And in dozens of cases, we found traces of either an attempted or a successful Pegasus infection.
What we know about NSO Group and what they've said for years is that this is a law enforcement tool. But I think what our investigations really reveal is the extent to which that is just a complete, fantasy narrative.
The implications of this software being used widely are effectively an end to privacy for the people who are targeted by it. that has very, very serious ramifications for how people who have legitimate secrets, which is everyone, go about living their lives. The most serious implications of something like Pegasus is that it makes it much more unlikely that a dictatorial regime will become democracy. Because those were already regimes and systems that were obsessive about trying to monitor their populations so that they could control them and prevent them from, rising up and overthrowing them. And this technology exponentially increases your capacity to do that.
I do believe it poses a greater threat to democracy. It's exposing that a lot of these technologies that we think are meant to keep us safer on our phones, and even if we're somewhat aware of it, that they're really not keeping us safe.
Okay, yeah, very scary stuff, guys. Very scary stuff. So now we're gonna move on to Pegasus in Mexico, right? The question that we're all asking, how does this relate to Mexico? We know Mexico has it, so what's going on, right? So let's start. Let's just go one by one. So let's start with Anna.
In July of 2020, Mexico's top security official confirmed that 2 previous administrations spent $61 million to buy Pegasus Spyware.
Thank you so much. Let's have Oscar.
Yeah. Thanks. Public Safety Secretary Rosa Isela Rodriguez stated records had been found of 31 contracts signed during the administrations of President Felipe Calderón in 2006, 2012, and President Enrique Peña Nieto in 2012-2018. Some contracts may have been disguised as purchases of another equipment.
Thank you so much, Oscar. Let's have Enrique.
Santiago Nieto, the head of Mexico's Financially Intelligent Unit, said the bills for programs like the Pegasus Spyware appear to have included excess payments that may have been channeled back to government officials as kickbacks.
Thank you so much. So, Oscar, what is kickbacks? Does kickbacks mean?
Yeah.
Do you remember?
I think it remember that something that is like bribing somebody, but under the table or.
Yeah, we did say under the table. Yeah, you got it. Right, so it's money being given that cannot be tracked, right? Absolutely, money under the table, definitely. So what this basically means was that along with the purchase of Pegasus, we've also seen within the Mexican government files that there were more payments outside of the Pegasus software that supposedly they're purchasing, right? So they say the government spent $61 million to buy Pegasus, right? But for some reason, the amount in which the government gave was like close to $100 million, right? So nobody knows what happened to those other couple of $1 million, right? So we have seen that some of these extra money, right, extra purchases went back into the pockets of politicians in Mexico, right? So that's what's happening. It's called kickbacks. Thank you. Kani.
Yes. Non-governmental groups identify signs of the spyware in the phones of 26 Mexican journalists, activists, and politicians between 2015 and 2017, include Claudia Sheinbaum, AMLO, his wife, children, IDs, and doctor.
Absolutely, right? So this is something that's kind of out of this world, right? We found this program within the phones of Claudia Sheinbaum and AMLO, as well as his family, everybody that worked with him, and his doctor, his private doctor, right? So what is significant about Claudia Sheinbaum and AMLO between the years of 2015 and 2017? What's significant about those dates? What were they doing?
They were running for the presidential candidate election, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. They were running for office, right? AMLO has yet to be elected as president of Mexico. Claudia Sheinbaum has yet to be established as the mayor of Mexico City, right? So there has to be something there, a connection, in why the only people, which is the government of Mexico, with the
Matt,
program, infiltrated those phones. Yes, I heard Matt.
Matt, how did they realize that they had application installed?
So
Was was published only for that they knew, no? But in this moment, for example, we had installed the Pegasus, and we don't know because we don't know the use that they are doing in this moment. No?
Yeah, I was gonna actually show that. There's a YouTube video where this guy exposes, how you can tell when you have the Pegasus on your phone. Right, so I think we're gonna watch that after. We haven't watched this in class yet, so it would be kind of new, right? But AMLO and Claudia Sheinbaum, right, once they were elected into office, they were background investigations from the Central Intelligence Agency of Mexico that really ran all of this, took their phones to make sure that everything was secure, and they found out that within that, there was the software that was spying on them. And again, right, there was another investigation by the Washington Post along with other media partners, which discovered spyware attempts in 37 different smartphones belonging to, again, journalists, human rights activists, and business people, not only in Mexico, but around the world. And again, I made this slide a couple months back, so it's not last week, but Mexican authorities have made the first arrest in the Pegasus Spyware scandal, where they jailed a technician who worked for a private firm, alleging that he was involved in illegally tapping the phone of a broadcast journalist. So if you guys want to type that up on Google, you could probably find the name of the person who was jailed as well as the victim of it. So now I want to go to here, and we want to type in Pegasus Spyware. So where is that? Oh, and does anybody remember this guy?
Yeah.
Let's watch this guy first. We know who this person is because we went over him. We went over him in the slide. Who is he?
Edward, in this moment, he's in another country.
Yep, he's in Russia. So here's an interview.
So, Ed, could you just give us your initial reaction to the findings of the Pegasus project?
This is everywhere. This is an industry that should not exist. We're seeing what the NSO group, which is sort of the most famous of these guys, is up to. But the NSO group is only one company of many. And if one company smells this bad, what's happening with all the others? I mean, when I look at this, what the Pegasus project has revealed is a sector where their only product are infection vectors, right? They don't, they're not security products. They're not providing any kind of protection, any kind of prophylactic. They don't make vaccines. The only thing they sell is the virus. And I think saying that they only sell this to government doesn't make that better when you look at who the targets are that have just been revealed.
There's been a number of surveillance leaks and disclosures over the years. No doubt the most significant was yours. How do you think this one compares?
This is certainly one of the most important. And these are major newspapers, major institutions that we rely on. This is peeling back a curtain that we have never seen done before, this level of granularity.
In the past, you've called smart.
Yeah, so he gave his own opinion on it. Obviously, he's not a big fan of the Pegasus software. So it's just kind of interesting. So if you guys want to watch Edward Snowden and his interviews, I think they're pretty interesting. So let's see how someone analyzed the Pegasus software.
That epic email should have been a...
Let's see. Hopefully they talk about it here. So let's see.
Will show step by step how to analyze your iPhone for hidden spyware, like the recently discovered Pegasus by NSO Group that reportedly was used to spy on journalists, politicians, and human rights activists. Pegasus can infect a phone in several ways, like clicking a malicious link or an iMessage, and some exploits don't even require any user input. Even if you're not interested in finding spyware, you might be surprised by the amount of data your phone logs. You can output a timeline of almost every interaction you had with your phone and view when you opened which app or website down to the second, even years later. I will use the free open source forensic software Mobile Verification Toolkit from Amnesty International macOS to run the mobile verification. In recent macOS versions, backups up. As a general rule, remember to check if any pasted code you're about to execute is trustworthy. If you don't have the knowledge to check yourself, cd mvt. And finally, install the cloned repository using Python 3 with default location as library identifiers. Running the command might take a while. At this point, we have an unencrypted copy of the iPhone backup ready to be analyzed. Amnesty International collected multiple indicators of an infection with certain spyware and provides these at another GitHub repository, which we will also clone. The final step is to check our backup. mvt-ios check-backup. Then -i, and here you can choose which spyware to check for. I will select the most recent one, Pegasus, so I'm going to provide the path to the file pegasus.stix2. If you want to save the analysis result, you can provide the option -o with an existing folder. Lastly, type a space and the path to our decrypted backup folder. When the toolkit has finished analyzing the logs, it will create several JSON files and a timeline table in the output folder. The software checks for known behavior of the selected spyware, as well as known domains and email addresses. In the case of Pegasus, it might, for example, be a suspicious process started shortly after receiving a text message. Any suspicious behavior will be marked with a warning in the terminal. It should also notify you here if it found any infection. Not all warnings are cause for concern. For example, these warnings for website.
Okay, so that's how basically you found Pegasus, right? So, everything that you do on your phone, right, you think you're doing it privately because you opened the incognito mode or you deleted the browser. All of that is just a bunch of garbage, right? You can find every single piece of information you've ever written on your phone just by, just hacking into your phone or doing what he did, right? Using a backup and seeing everything you did. So, right, your privacy does not exist. So I would just shy away from, going on websites you're not supposed to, right? Maybe sending some pictures to other people that you're not supposed to, right? Because in the end, right, someone could use this against you. Very, very damaging. Very damaging. So, hopefully that answers your question, right? Of how you can find Pegasus in your phone. There's a couple of steps, but I think that once you have the hang of it, you should have, all the data that you need. By the way, has anybody here received just like random WhatsApp text from spam? Does anybody receive spam WhatsApp texts? Has anybody?
Yeah.
Okay, because for me, ever since I went to Mexico, I've been receiving text messages from Chinese individuals, which, I really do not know what, but I keep deleting it and blocking them, but they keep messaging me. Like one of them said, "Hey, we got your tuxedo ready, Will." And I'm like, I don't want to respond back, but obviously like the name was in Chinese. And there was another time where somebody texted me, we know you live in Maryland. I was wondering if you could give me money for start a startup or something like that. I don't know how, somebody can get my WhatsApp. Like I would understand if it was just my phone, but they went through my WhatsApp, which is kind of weird for me. So just be careful for that, because there are instances where individuals do message you. And I'm gonna get kind of sidetracked right now because I'm really interested in this whole Chinese thing right now. So I remember watching this guy, spam. There's a guy on YouTube who talks about this, how the government of China was using, this one, I think.
Google Career Certificates provide online job
guy.
training that's fast and flexible. Learning.
Have you ever received one of these text messages or maybe a WhatsApp message out of the blue that seems to be someone who's familiar with you? Tends to look like a pretty Chinese girl? If you have.
Yeah, and majority, all of them have been like Chinese women as a picture. So
you might be a pig that's up for slaughter. This fairly new confidence trick is called Sha Zhu Pan, which means pig butchering in Chinese. And it's something that's really come to the forefront recently in the last year or so. And the reason it's called the pig butchering scam is because it describes exactly how the scam works. It's like raising a pig from a baby all the way up until it's at the age where you can slaughter it. So you have to fatten it up and get it ready for slaughter, and finally you slaughter it. And that's what they're doing with you. They're stringing you along and they're building you up to the point where they can suddenly take you for a lot of money. Now, it's a confidence trick, of course, and it involves...
Yeah, so that is the scam. I think his was more like government oriented.
Probably through photos or talking about going to...
Yeah, so so those are like the Chinese scammers. So I wasn't sure, how I got that text, but it normally happens like that. So now we're gonna continue again with Pegasus. Does anybody remember us watching this video? I know we sometimes skip over this video. So Aris, you watched this video? Okay. Oscar, did you remember watching this video?
I think yes.
Okay. So I know Anna probably didn't. So we're gonna watch this video, and it talks about a famous journalist called Carmen, who had Pegasus spyware in her phone.
Bienvenidas y bienvenidos, gracias por estar esta mañana. Saludos a quienes nos escuchan y ven en México. Bueno, una semana intensa. Ser periodista en México significa colocar tu vida personal y tu integridad en peligro. Saber que tus comunicaciones privadas son interferidas por el gobierno mexicano, desde luego te tienes que preguntar para qué lo quieren. Detectamos en nuestros teléfonos esos mensajes extraños.
Cosas relacionadas con mi vecindario, como el cártel de Sinaloa está a 2 cuadras de tu casa de sospechoso. Ves algo así, pues claro que te deja en shock. Mensajes ya perfectamente hechos para tratar de convencerme a mí de hacer clic y bueno, que mi teléfono sea intervenido por Pegasus, pues.
¿Para qué querían saber de mi hijo Emilio? ¿Para qué el gobierno de Enrique Peña Nieto quería conocer las amistades, las comunicaciones, las fotografías, qué hace, qué dice en tiempo real? Porque eso es Pegasus. Es siniestro. Y es más siniestro aún si se hace en contra de un joven adolescente.
Claro, yo creciendo en un entorno así, pero claro que me dio miedo por mi mamá. Pero ya cuando fui madurando, creciendo, ya como que fui pasando eso del miedo y ya como que yo prefiero que mi mamá haga lo que hace porque este país necesita un un jalón.
Pero tristemente hay casos peores que los nuestros. En México hay periodistas que han sido asesinados y prácticamente el 100% de esas muertes ha quedado en la impunidad. Y eso es algo muy dañino para cualquier democracia y para cualquier sociedad.
Right. So, this brings us to the bigger point, right? Which is journalists and the threat to them. They're being killed, right? Through people who might have spied on them, who don't like their content, right? And this is one of the most extreme forms that people see, because it's not just individuals, organizations trying to get at them, right? It's the government structure, the people who are supposed to represent them, people who are supposed to really protect them at the end of the day, right? So, Pegasus, is that something the Mexican government should have the ability to use on its citizens, right? And if they are, why aren't they being transparent about what exactly they're doing, right? So we're going to get into the threats to journalists, right? And before I get to it, I know it's a little bit more of a hard topic, but I think it's something that we all need to really take a look at, because the more educated we are, the more we're able to fight it, right? The more we're able to teach other people about the harms it can do. Mexico, as we've seen in the news, right, has had a huge problem with the murder of journalists, where over 99% of those killed are left with nothing. Nobody has ever got caught because they killed the journalists, right? So where is the justice? We're going to discuss it, right? So here are the threats to journalists. Let's have Anna read the first bullet point, please.
Threats to media freedom start way before journalists are killed or imprisoned.
Thank you so much, right? So we know that all this, before they're killed, imprisoned, tortured, right? There's red flags that we see before. So what are those? Oscar, second bullet point, please.
Yes. Some threats have become so commonplace for journalists, accept them as a normal part of their work. Yet these threats are not normal. They are wrong and often illegal.
Thank you, Oscar. When journalists say that, I get threatened, or somebody put something in front of my house telling me that if I post this they're going to kill me, if they see it as normal part of their work, that's a problem. Journalists should not fear about the things that they're going to post, right? You should be able to express what you believe in, because no matter what country you're in, right? If your country is democratic, meaning that you guys support individual freedoms, the government is supposed to protect you. And if they don't, is the government a true democracy? That's something you have to think about as well. Enrique, would you mind reading the third bullet point, please?
Threats range from harassment on the basis of difference such as gender, LGBTQ, migration history, race, or protesting against climate change, to intimidation and physical or legal threats.
Thank you so much, Enrique. Right. So the threats that we're talking about come in various different forms. Like Enrique said, right, it can come through gender, whether you are undocumented in the country, whether you're legal in the country, right? It may be on the form of your race, right? Will attack you just because you're black or because you're Latino, right? Even the things that you believe in politically, right, such as climate change, could land you in heavy heat when the business owners of maybe the businesses that you're talking about in your news articles have connections with the government. Say, hey, this is affecting my money and how I make it. Nobody's investing in my company anymore. We need to get that guy, right? And the government's like, okay, yeah, we'll kill him for you. Don't worry about it, right? That's something. Or not even that they kill them. Maybe they might punch them, torture them, tell them not to do it again. Or in other cases, they might even revoke their journalist license, meaning that even if they try to publish something, they'll go to jail because they don't have the license. Okay, so let's have Kanie. Oh, you're on mute, Kenny.
Yeah, sorry. All these threats, large and small, happen every day and prevent journalists from doing their job. They can also discourage other fronts covering topics that might result in similar intimidation.
Yep. Thank you so much. So let's do this. Okay, so if we don't protect our freedom to express ourselves in the media, we're left with silence. And what does silence cause? It causes conformity. It causes everything to be normalized. If you're silent, you're part of the problem as well, right? If something is happening in your backyard, maybe a politician was killed and nobody covers it, right? What does that say about the society in general? Is it normal for that to happen? Absolutely not, right? We can't be silent because the moment everybody becomes silent, we normalize this horrible structure. We normalize the killing of journalists. We normalize everything wrong with society, right? And this again comes to the point that threats to journalists and people who work in the media are essentially threats to democracy, right? Threats to the way of life, the Constitution of Mexico, the Constitution of the United States, right? There are threats to that. If politicians don't see this and maybe even support bashing, telling journalists that they're wrong, right? That's a threat to democracy. That's a red flag. Stalin started out like that. Hitler started out like that. So we need to stop it at the root cause. So here is a graph that nobody has seen yet. Hopefully, I think. I found this in a really interesting that just came out research on aggressions against journalists. So all the crimes that happen against journalists. So these are the things that have been reported into percentage. So 6% of people who say that somebody had an aggression against them because they were journalists came from organized crime members, right? 6% reported that it was organized crime that were trying to violate their rights. 20% said unknown, so they didn't know where it's coming from. 21% said it was private security. 23% said it was just normal individuals who were trying to not make them talk, right? Being aggressive towards them. 27% said that it was public officials, right? So what are public officials, guys?
I don't know, public officials?
The government, maybe?
Yep, government officials, right? So 27% said there were government officials that were trying to shut me up, right? They were abusing me or they had intimidated me. 2% said it was the actual political party like Morena or PRI, and 1% said it was armed forces like the military, right? So what is the biggest percentage here, guys?
The public officials.
Public official.
Yeah, public officials. And this is only the crimes that have been reported, right? So if this is the crimes that have been reported, imagine all the unreported crimes. Maybe, even reporting the crime could be a threat to your life as well, right? We have to. Yes.
But I think is joined with the organized crime, with the armed force, political party, public office is together because it's they are for example the government says something and is how they say to join with this all part and that I comment because the government all he is responsible for this about the percent. I don't know how do you say legal, but it's joined with this 6%, 20, 11, and 188, no, 27%. It's the same. Well, for me, it's my personal opinion.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of people who believe that as well. And there's a lot of research that has proven that there has been sort of cahoots between the organized crime and the government of Mexico, where they've worked together at some moments. One big one was the corruption that happened with Cienfuegos, which was, I think, the Secretary of Defense or General.
Yes.
Yeah, Secretary of Defense, where he was extradited to the United States of part of a DEA sting. So once he landed in the United States, the Drug Enforcement Administration arrested him on charges that he had done money laundering. He had worked with the organized crime, has killed a few people on behalf of organized crime, right? So it was a lot of different things. And what ended up happening, if you guys remember, does anybody know what ended up happening to him?
No, I don't know. In this moment, the last time we read that he's free. No, in this moment he's free.
So he
doesn't have a charge about this situation.
Yeah. So once he was in the United States said, we want to put him in jail. The Mexican government said, according to AMLO, that it wasn't right that the United States did not tell the Mexican government of the information that they have gathered about him, and requested, and well, not really requested, they basically told the United States, listen, we need him back in Mexico, and we'll try him here, right? So the United States didn't have an option, and they sent him back to Mexico, and there he was found not guilty of a lot of the things that the United States said he did. So this caused AMLO's administration to tell the United States that we're not able to operate anymore. The Drug Enforcement Administration in Mexico, we're not allowed to go into Mexico with the CIA either. So a lot of these things that we're trying to attack the organized crime through American intervention has been shut down by the Mexican government because of this instance. So, there's a lot of talks of whether the Mexican government was trying to protect themselves because he knew a lot of information. But, those are all conspiracy theories. But, the thing is clear, right? There is some level of corruption within the Mexican government. Some we have probably not heard of, some that we already do. But in the end, right, there is, just like there is in any other government as well. So, holding individuals accountable, I think, is definitely the right path to go. It's harder when the same people who are supposed to represent you are doing the crimes, right? So it's pretty hard to do that.
Do you know, for example, Mark, I don't know why USA protect this kind of, for example, the ex-president, some people like Cienfuegos, and there are many people in USA. I don't know, but I suppose they were involved with the government and these people with USA because they are there.
So your question is why do we support
protect these kind of people?
So
for example, Cedillo is in USA. He's a teacher, I don't know, but there are many people from the ex-president, people that they were involved with the militaries and with the drug. I don't know.
So I guess I don't think the United States is protecting Cienfuegos in this instance. I think we want it to really pin him down. But in accordance to international law and the agreements that we've made with Mexico, we can't really hold their public officials, we can't hold them and detain them without notifying the Mexican government. If they have an objection with it, then they have the right to try them in their own country, right, in Mexico. So in this case, Cienfuegos was given back to Mexico based off of that. That's what happened again with El Chapo as well, when United States gave him over to Mexico, where he eventually escaped from the Mexican security prison. So the second time he came around, right, he was staying in the American prison system for sure. So yeah, so this is what happened. So interesting stuff. So let's watch a short video about the type of intimidation and the violence caused against journalists.
It's a free world.
ต้องมีกระบวนการไม่ใช่ว่ามันมีกระบวนการค้ากระบวนการค้าคน for urgent action to address the human rights crisis.
And now they want to continue upending environmental laws.
Comment être serein quand on sait qu'il y a des policiers qui se manquent et qui ne sont pas sanctionnés?
The press is under a lot of attacks from all sorts of people.
It has nothing to do with immorality. I'm just a journalist wearing jeans and t-shirt.
Maintenant, nous faisons face à des intimidations physiques.
Mi esposo lo agarraron con otros 4 muchachos viniendo a una reunión de 30 señoras aquí en Mataralba.
Et je remarquais que le gouvernement n'est pas encore emprisonné les journalistes.
Journalists have to report fairly and independently, but it's extremely difficult when so many of them are being killed.
Mais on sait que demain, après-demain, ça peut être toi.
Right. So, very scary stuff there, right? 9 out of 10 people around the world, right? Not just one country, who are journalists, when they get killed, the problem remains unsolved. So it's a global issue, which we all need to speak up for because it's the corner of what makes a democracy. So this brings us to Reporters Without Borders, and for you guys who have seen this before, good news, they have just updated their website, meaning that the news sections for different countries have new explanations for why they chose it. So what is Reporters Without Borders, RSF, right? It's a organization, nonprofit organization, that provides information about media freedom worldwide. So it gives you different countries, and based off those different countries, they rank it from 1 to 180, being the best country to the worst country. They also advocate for journalist freedom. They do campaigns about journalists who have been killed. They help people legally by assuring that they have lawyers to help them against the government who wants to suppress them. They also help them, understand when their phones and computers are being hacked, right? So it's really cool. So here we're going to see the website, and here is the list of the countries, ranking from best to worst on their level of journalistic freedom. So we have the best country here, which is Norway, right? Norway is number 1 of 180. Where's the United States? We're number 42 of 180. So we're not the pinnacle of democracy here. So we're not the best one, which is kind of sad. So which country do you believe is the worst country to be a journalist?
Russia.
Russia. So let's see what's Russia. Russia is 155 out of 180. So they went actually lower. So in 2021, they were ranked 150. Now they're ranked 155. So they went lower. So why is this? Let's see their country fact file. Since Russia invaded Ukraine, almost all independent media have been banned, blocked, and declared foreign agents. All other subjects to military censorship. And that's true, right? The Russian government basically said if you say anything that states that the invasion of Russia is in fact an invasion and is a military war with Ukraine, you could face up to 15 years in prison for that. 15 years in prison. So that's not very much free media there, right? So here gives you the media landscape, the political context, the legal framework, and the economic, everything. So just like to go over it, right? Let's have, does anybody want to read this? Just this one point. Anyone want to practice their English is what I'm basically asking.
Yes.
I?
Go ahead, Enrique.
Media landscape. All privately owned independent TV channels are banned from broadcasting except for cable entertainment channels. The Russian version of Euronews was suspended by Roskomnadzor, the media regulator, on 22 March 2022. Among the big print media outlets, which have belonged to the Kremlin allies for a few years, those that have preserved their independence and were under constant threat of closure, like the independent three-weekly Novaya Gazeta, have had to suspend their publications. Radio stations are the same situation. Media outlets that have survived are faced with very strict self-censorship because of banned themes on and words, and Western social networks are gradually being blocked. Okay.
Thank you so much, Enrique. So not only have they barred certain news channels from being promoted, right? But any news channel that has no affiliation with the government, so independent, they're barred. You're not allowed to report. So that is a big red flag. So let's go back, right? And let's see a country that affects us all, right? So before I click on Mexico, what rank do you think Mexico has?
I don't know, 100?
117, maybe?
117. Anybody else?
160.
100 what? 60, 95. Okay. Okay, good. So let's look at Iraq. Right. Okay, so Iraq is 172, Syria 171, Iran 178. So we have this going for it, right? Mexico is 127. 127 last year, it was 143. Now it's 127. Which is, I wouldn't say better, because I think the overall situation of the world has gotten worse. So it's just Mexico kind of stayed the same, right? So let's see why this is. They updated this recently, like this month. So we're gonna go over this whole page and we're gonna read it. So thank you, Enrique. We'll come back to you, right, since you read the other one. So let's start with Kani. Would you read this one as well as the media landscape?
Mexico is one of the countries with highest media concentrations in the world, and entry to the broadcasting sector by smaller, independent media outlets extremely difficult. The telecom sector is dominated by Telmex, broadcasting controlled by Televisa, and the newspaper sector is sometimes led by organization Editorial Mexican, which owns 70 Mexican daily newspapers, 24 radio stations, and 44 websites. The number of independent journalists upload their own reports on social media is on the.
Thank you so much. Right. So who here has known this, right? That there is sort of monopoly on the communication and the media of Mexico, right? Just like Kani said, the telecom sector, right? Anything that has to do with phones, right? Dominated by Telmex, right? Telmex is the main person, right? The main thing, sorry. Then Televisa owns a lot of the news that comes on, right? A lot of the different news channels that you guys have are controlled by Televisa, even though they're on another name. And the Organización Editorial Mexicana, right, which owns 70 newspapers, right? That's a whole bunch, right? So let's see what type of newspapers they own.
Organización Editorial Mexicana.
Oh, what was that? Okay, so they're 50. So which are the... They don't give us the.
El Sol de México.
So this is the newspapers owned by them. Does anybody recognize any of the newspapers?
Esto. El Sol de México.
It's a lot, though. A lot. So, all of these are controlled, right? So these are like the local newspapers from local communities. And a lot of these communities are, the central, the biggest regions within those states. All right. So it's a lot. So here we have Veracruz.
Practically the El Sol, but I don't know. I can't see El Sol de México.
Yeah, so they own this. They own the El Sol de Mexico. Yeah. So interesting, right? So let's continue. Let's look at the political context. Does anybody want to read this? I think Anna, you wanted to read last time.
Yes.
Yep, please.
President López Obrador and other government officials have adopted a combative and stigmatizing rhetoric against the press, frequently accusing journalists of promoting the opposition's agenda. They have established a space every Wednesday called Who's Who in Fake News, in yet another attempt by the government to discredit journalists. In the 3 years of his administration, the president has criticized journalists for their lack of professionalism and has described the Mexican press as biased, unfair, and the scum of journalists.
Okay. Has anybody heard of this Who's Who in Fake News?
No.
Who's Who in Fake News? So let's see. Who's Who in Fake News? I think it's called ¿Quiénes quieren las mentiras? Okay. So it's that one. So let's.
Yeah.
You're always there with just what they need to make them feel safe, special, and most of all, loved. You're always there for them, and we're always here for you. Food Lion, here for every moment.
Vamos a iniciar también hoy el programa informativo, la sección de estas conferencias destinada a dar a conocer las mentiras que se difunden en medios de información convencionales y también en las redes, para que se vaya contando con
transparencia,
información, con elementos, y tengamos cada vez más una ciudadanía muy consciente. El periodismo sea un imperativo ético, además que se asuma la responsabilidad de que se le debe respeto a la gente. No se puede mentir impunemente. Y en los últimos tiempos, por el predominio de la política neoliberal o neoporfirista, la mentira en los medios se convirtió en una constante. Y no había derecho de réplica. Ahora.
Okay, so that's just like, a little example, a little taste of, the type of program that he was running, I think continues to run. So Really interesting if you want to take a look at it. And again, like I'm not here to criticize any like president. Like don't think that like I don't like your country. Like I love it, right? But obviously, just like there is problems in the United States, there's always problems like in every single country. I'm just stating the situation that's going on. So don't think like I'm anti-AMLO or anti PRI and Peña or Mexico. I'm not. So let's continue. So who wants to read the legal framework?
Me.
Oscar?
Yeah.
Great, go ahead.
Press freedom is guaranteed in the Mexican Constitution and further upheld in the law regarding freedom of the press of 1917. In practice, there are no overtly restrictive laws that curtail or censor press freedom, with censorship imposed with threats or direct attacks against the journalists, rather than lawsuits, imprisonment, or ruling of suspensions of activities.
Thank you so much, Oscar. Aries, would you mind reading this one, please? Economic context.
Economic context. Mexico economy is diversified, including high-tech industry, oil production, mineral exploitation, and manufacturing. Also, it is the second largest economy in Latin America. After Brazil, Mexico was hit by the pandemic with more than 2 million jobs lost between March and December 22. Journalists have had to see alternative sources of income while attempting to continue their journalist work as a freelancer. Yes, I think it's correct.
Thank you, Aries. Let's go back. Enrique, are you ready? Okay, I think he might be out. So, Kenny, do you want to read this one?
Mexico is a huge country with one of the most populous cities in the world, Mexico City, and the last other 7 cities with over 1 million inhabitants. The popularity of telenovelas have traditionally been the link between mass media and the search of information for the general population, given that Televisa, a family-owned private company with links to the government, is the biggest supplier of both.
Right. So for a long time, a lot of people have been saying, the thing that really identifies Mexico and really unites a lot of Mexico, right, is the shared love in telenovelas, right? And there's a lot of people who do argue that telenovelas are meant to refocus a lot of the situations that are going to Mexico, that are going along in Mexican politics and the issues of Mexico, and directing that focus into watching more telenovelas. There's also been instances where things that happen in real life have been interpreted within telenovelas in order to serve a specific agenda, in order to serve a political agenda, more specifically, right? So they would reshape the way we would view a certain situation because of a telenovela or because of this that comes out, right? So it's kind of interesting to see how Televisa and the people who own it have links to the government, right? What can the government do when they control the thing that a lot of Mexicans watch, right? Interesting. And finally, let's go over safety. Enrique, you're back. So let's do it.
Safety. Collusion between officials and organized crime poses a grave threat to journalist safety and cripples the judicial system at all levels. Journalists who cover sensitive political stories or crime, especially at the local level, are warned, threatened, and then gunned down in cold blood. Others are abducted and never seen again. Or they flee abroad as the only way to ensure their survival. President López Obrador still hasn't carried out the reforms needed to rein in this violence and impunity. More than 150 journalists have been murdered in Mexico since to 2000.
2000. So,
2000.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. But thank you, right? So this is an overview of right, the country of Mexico. You know, of course I can't just leave it as that, right? We are a US Mexico partnership here. So we're gonna see, you know, what's wrong with the United States too. So, you know, United States is not all perfect. So I'll read it real fast, right? So the media landscape, it says, while most major media outlets in the United States operate free from government interference, many popular outlets are owned by a small handful of wealthy individuals in a diverse global media landscape. Local news has declined significantly in years, and in 2020, fearing a brutal wave of news agency executive dismissals from the Trump administration, the Reporters Without Borders called on the U.S. Agency for Global Media and the news media executives to respect the media's independence, right? So here we have the political context. After 4 years of Trump constantly denigrating the press, President Biden signaled his administration's desire to see the U.S. reclaim its global status as the model for freedom of expression, thus restating regular White House and federal agency press briefings. Despite these efforts, many of the underlying chronic issues impacting journalists remain unaddressed by the authorities, including the disappearance of local news, the polarization of the media, or the weakening of journalism and the democracy caused by digital platforms and social networks. Right, so we have news channels here that are highly popular, but they just spew lies. There's a guy named Alex Jones. If you guys have heard of him, if you guys haven't, good for you. But now I will show you who Alex Jones is. He is someone who is very controversial. He was the main guy behind something called InfoWars. Or InfoWars. Yeah, that was the name of the news. He's most famously went to the parents of the Sandy Hook shooting. Right, there was a shooting that happened in Sandy Hook Elementary School, where a bunch of kids died because a crazy gunman went in and shot everybody. He claimed that this was a government conspiracy, that the government paid them, that they were all actors. And he went to the houses of the parents of these individuals and told them that they were all actors, that they were lying. And he eventually got sued by these parents, and the parents won. So now he's broke, he's bankrupt, and he's not allowed to do anything that has to do with news anymore.
Oh.
So let's see. Alex Jones compilation. I think it's funny.
Obama deception.
So here's just some of him, so you guys could get to know him.
Keep drinking the fluoride water. Take all the vaccines. Drink out of the bisphenol A. It's growing. It's coming. What you asked for is now at the doors.
Okay, wait, hold on, not this one. But he went on another one. Let's see. Alex Jones. Conspiracy theory. So this was in front of a politician. During the Trump administration, he was given access to the White House, where he went in and really berated some of the politicians. So here is a presidential candidate that was running called Marco Rubio, a conservative Republican. So really interesting. Blockchain. Okay.
Some of that same cordial tone that you guys have been discussing. He said he prefers not to regulate some of these social media companies. He wants to let competition and the market do its job. He also seems satisfied with the answers that the companies gave over how they handle requests from authoritarian regimes. But our interview was cut short because he was confronted by Alex Jones of InfoWars right here in the hallway.
playing this joke over here. That's why the deplatforming didn't work.
But here's a question. Here's a question.
Hey, don't touch me again, man. I'm asking you not to touch me.
Well, sure, I was just mad at you nicely.
I know, but I don't want to be. I don't know you, man. I don't know who you are.
It's not
You're not going to get arrested, man. You're not going to get arrested. I'll take care of it myself.
Oh, he'll beat me up.
I didn't say
He
that.
didn't know I am, but he's so mad.
So, Scott, we tried to talk to several other
So,
lawmakers here in the hallways, but again, many.
That's part of him. There was another instance where he actually, I think it was him. So, Alex Jones, DC Pizza.
The pizza.
Yeah, so the Pizzagate. Basically, so where I live, about 40 minutes to DC, there's a place called I'm not sure what it's called. Comet Pizza. Very popular place for pizza. He said that the Democratic officials, so the people in the Democratic Party, the politicians, had a bunch of kids sold for sex slaves down there, and that it was up to the citizens to go in and really just save these children from being sexually abused by the Democratic Party. And in the end, a crazed gunman went in and started firing with a gun, and just believed that there was kids in the basement. And surprising surprise, right? There was no basement to that place. And a lot of these conspiracy theories came out because of Alex Jones, and here we have a family believing what he believed in. So really, really weird stuff. So let's see, what do we have? Okay, we'll end the class now. 22, so like 5 minutes over. We're good. So hopefully you guys learned something new today about Alex Jones and the power of fake news and the threats to journalists. Next week, we'll go over some technology threats, right? Something called slaughter drones, slaughter bots. And it might be the future of how wars are fought and how journalists are really killed. So if anybody has any questions, concerns, comments, I'm here. If not, have a great rest of your week. And I'll see you for the last meeting next week.
Matt,
You
I
too.
just want to comment that there were a documentary that it was called Obama Deception, and it was done by Alex Johnson. But it is it's hard not to listen to him because he says he gives the evidence about why Obama was just imposed by the power behind him. And
Yeah, I mean, you got to be careful though, because Alex Jones, he's very convincing. He's been doing this since like the early 90s, the 80s, right? But the information he does give, right? They follow his narrative, so he might cherry pick something that falls in line with what he believes in and runs with it. So be careful with that. And I would suggest you use the little graph, the all bias media chart. Remember how you can type it in and find where everything is at. Use that, right? So hopefully he hasn't radicalized you. I don't want to see you in the news, right? So good job, Oscar.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Any other questions, concern, comments?
No, thank you. See you the next time.
Yep. Bye. Take care, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Matt. Bye.
Yep.